Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's top 10 best and worst characters of Babylon 5. So this video is the continuation or culmination, you might say, of my coverage of Babylon 5, where I have just covered every single episode of Babylon 5 one season at a time. So I'm doing a couple of videos here to wrap up my coverage of Babylon 5. I had just done my top 15 least favorite episodes and my top 30 favorite episodes, so now it's time for me to do my 10 favorite and least favorite characters of Babylon 5. Now, as I mentioned before, like when I did the similar coverage of Voyager. When I did Voyager, I did the top favorite episodes and least favorite episodes, just like I did here. But with Voyager, I did ranking all seasons, which I'm not going to bother doing for Babylon 5 because it's pretty simple with Babylon 5. So instead, I decided it's better to focus on the characters, because when I went back and watched my season 1 review, and the one thing I was very critical of the show of that time, this is after watching season 1, which to be fair is definitely the worst season of the show, is I didn't like the characters, and I didn't think the characters worked as well as they do in many other shows, particularly Star Trek shows, which I think is one of the things that draw me in. I thought I was very good at was character development. Other than Enterprise, that was shit, which is why that's the worst Star Trek show. But digressing. And it's funny because I just watched a whole bunch of Babylon 5 videos, and a lot of people were saying, oh, it had great characters, well-written characters, well-acted characters, and I don't know, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I did find that as the show went on and got into the better seasons, there were characters who I really liked, who I really thought worked, but some never got there to me. Some really fell flat, so I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and just say my top 10 least favorite characters, the ones I thought didn't work for the show, my top 10 favorite characters, the ones I thought were well developed and did really work for the show. There are some major characters in here who aren't on either list. That's because I was kind of, they're in the middle for me, like, so they won't be mentioned at all, like Sheridan, for example, because I liked his character arc and his character story, but I was never on board with the actor who portrayed him. Sorry. He was too much like, hi, I'm a handsome man, and sometimes I just didn't buy him in that role. Sometimes I think Babylon 5 could have done better with the casting, but again, this may have had to do with budget restraints or whatever. Maybe the studio interfered too much, I don't know. But anyway, again, not that he's a terrible actor, because it's not on my worst list. He's kind of doesn't make either list because he's just in between for me. But anyway, so in order to be eligible for either list, I decided the character would have to appear in at least 2 episodes, so 2 or more episodes. Otherwise, there would be a lot of one-off characters I'd be putting in my worst list, to be frank. Like, most of the worst list would be filled with one-off characters. In fact, this rule made it harder for me to come up with a worst list. I don't know, a lot of these one-offs didn't work for me. But yeah, I decided it makes more sense if I'm talking about the best list. So I do supporting characters and maybe some background characters who only appeared in a couple episodes, but you had to appear in at least 2 to make either list. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with my top 10 least favorite characters, and we'll start with my number 10 least favorite character of Babylon 5, and that is Captain Lockley. Now, to be fair, the only reason she is on this list is because I needed to meet my quota of 10. And I was finding it hard. I had originally put some other characters in here that I think might piss people off more. So I thought, well, Lockley is a bit more of a safe bet, because I don't really mind her. And these other characters I didn't really mind much either. But yeah, she does have some issues. And the thing is, what saved this character for me is the fact that they did flesh out her backstory more, like I talked about in the couple episodes we got that showed that she was a drug addict as a teenager, and she had a friend who died of an overdose, and she has that mysterious background to her. It really fleshes out her character and makes it really interesting. But outside of that, she's pretty flat. She actually doesn't do much. Like I would like the concept of her introducing this new captain character in season 5, after Sheridan wasn't the captain anymore. Someone who's on Clark's side, who'd be slightly more adversarial. But she doesn't really do anything. Other than that, what I just mentioned, they never really develop her character, and she actually doesn't appear in season 5 very much. I was actually hoping she would appear in season 5 more than she did. So for a lot of times, she just comes off as this cliche, stick in the mud captain that's not, not very well, dimensioned or developed. So that's why I went ahead and put her on this list anyway. Anyway, we'll get into my number 9. Again, a character I'm not that negative on, but I have to feel a quota here. And that's Lorien, who is, named after lost Lorien. So, and this, he's like a magical creature who appears to Sheridan. He felt really tacked on to me. In fact, that ending, the final episode where, he appears to Sheridan, and he's like, "Come with me to the magical realm," and which is it was too much of her. I know that Babylon 5 is very much inspired by Lord of the Rings, and many times it works in his favor. But in this case, that was too on the nose. It was too much of a rip-off of Frodo going into the Undying Lands with the elves or whatever. It's just like, oh, come on. And I found most of the scenes with this character really boring, particularly the episode he first appeared in. It was supposed to be all theatrical, where it was it's a very clunky way to bring Sheridan back to life, and they meet in this land. He's like, "Ooh, are you lying?" He talks in riddles and tries to be all cool. And I don't know. Didn't care for him very much. Okay, now we'll get into my number 8, which I know is going to ruffle some feathers, or ruffle some peacocks, I should say, because I know this character is very much beloved. I've seen him appear as the number 1 best character on many people's list, and he's on my worst list. But if you've seen my reviews, this shouldn't surprise you, because I mentioned this and talked about this a lot. In fact, you should be surprised he's not higher on my list, and that is Londo Malari. Yes. Bring out your torches and pitchforks and get ready to crucify me. How dare you! But, and I've heard the argument proposed that he had a very dynamic character arc, that he had a redemption, or not so much redemption, but like, because he goes into the dark place. He's, seduced by Mr. Morden into this darkness, and to be fair, I did kind of like that, and I will touch on that part a bit later. I did kind of like that, in how he, goes to a really dark place, like ordering Jakar to be killed, but then it eventually comes full circle, and there's a very natural progression of the story, where eventually he does come to appreciate Jakar and to deeply regret the things that he's done, and he ends up paying for it at the end. It's not like that's why I'm saying it's not really a redemptive arc, because it's not a happy ending for him, which some people might say he deserved, and he does, but he does kind of redeem himself in the eyes of his friends and of the audience, and of course of Jakar, which was really touching. So I'm saying all these positive things about Londo. Why is he on my worst list? What the fuck are you talking about, Mark? Are you saying he's on your worst list and you're saying all these positive things? Well, let me clarify. I'm saying positive things about his character story, which to me, a character story does not equate a character. An actual character is different from a character story, if you follow me here. So I was saying that most people hold that up as examples as why that's a good character, but I say that's an example of why he had a good character story, not why he's a good character. I think at the heart of it, they gave a bad character a good character story. Now, I'm spending a lot of time talking about Londo, but I think I need to justify myself. And again, not that it's going to help. I know people are still going to insult me and call me names in the comments. Go for it, whatever. But I still feel like I need to justify my reasoning here. So, Londo, at the heart of it, is I talked about this a lot. I don't like the concept, the execution of the Centauri. They're too much as like stereotypical, like they're supposed to be like these. His uniform makes it obvious he's supposed to be the Napoleon type. His accent sounds like, I don't know, like Eastern European or whatever, and he's got these teeth, and it's like, oh yeah, I like even his vernacular, like his way of speaking, is very sort of European-like to me, and the peacock hairdo, which I have heard the story behind it, doesn't excuse it at all for me, and it's just. It's so nerve-wracking. I think it's very poor execution, and even if I look beyond the surface appearance or the surface demeanor, oh yes, I am Londo Veer, come here, Veer. Like, even if I look beyond that, there's not much to this character. He's kind of flat. They do give him a good, as I say, good character story, a character arc. He goes on a character arc where he learns something, blah, blah, blah. But at the base of it, they just gave a great character arc to a flat, poorly executed character. My opinion, I know, flame me alive, I don't give a shit. Alright, let me move on to my number 7, which is another one that's probably going to ruffle some feathers. But again, I'm going to say it anyway. Zephyrus. Oh, Zephyrus talks about himself in the third person. Oh, because Zephyrus acts like a stereotypical fantasy imp type character. Yes, this is JMS he's creating Zephyrus to be a stereotypical character. And they brought Zephyrus back even though Zephyrus died, and they made up some lame excuse about how Zephyrus has brothers who all look alike, and they're also called Zephyrus, which I thought was the lamest thing they could ever do. And Zephyrus himself was a bit annoying, so I'm going to stop talking like this. Okay, so getting into my number 6 again. Wow, again, going to ruffle some feathers here. Lanier. Now, to be fair, the only reason I put Lanier on this list and this high, again, he's higher than Londo, so you should take solace in that. But anyway, the only reason I'm putting him on this list is because Season 5, to be fair. If it wasn't for Season 5, he wouldn't make this list, but they completely destroyed his character in Season 5. You might say, well, that's not fair to put him all the way up on number 6 just because of one season. But it's not just because of one season, because I never really liked him that much to begin with. He's always like the boring religious stereotype, and pretty much any time they tried to do something humorous with him, I hated it. I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was cheesy. And he was always kind of this typical, just annoying guy in the background. And he does have some cool moments from time to time, to be fair. But I think that's overridden by his Season 5 storyline, which completely destroyed and ruined his character. They made him fall in love with Lynn, which I think was the dumbest thing ever. He worked so much better as an aide. Why can't any fucking show have a male and female character work closely together without one falling in love with the other? That really pisses me the fuck off. And the way it was executed, oh, I'm going to join the Rangers, is and because he had already, like, he was already functioning as a ranger, basically. He was already running the ship. He already had training. But then it's like, oh, I'm going to join them and do all this training and act like I'm a... Oh, God. It was just annoyed the fuck out of me. And in the final episode, not the final episode, but towards the end, like the whole thing, he almost let Sheridan die because he was so jealous of him. And it's like, that's why he's number 6 in this fucking list. That was the final nail in his coffin that just ruined his character. That was so much horseshit. Anyway, let me get into my number 5. God, man, I'm on a roll here. I'm keeping going. This is gonna piss people off even more. But again, he's higher than Londo, which actually some people might be pissed off about that. But anyway, number 5 is the aforementioned Veer. Never again. I already talked about the Centauri, so I won't rehash that. But you already know how I feel about the Centauri. But Veer, in particular, I don't understand why people love this guy so much. He is the stereotypical cliche, bumbling sidekick idiot stereotype. He never grows beyond this. I don't care what anyone says. He's always the stereotypical, cliche, bumbling idiot aide stereotype. always. I mean, they give him some interesting things to do sometimes, like seeing him in the final episode where he's sleeping with a bunch of women after he's emperor. I mean, that was kind of funny. That was kind of cool. But so I guess that's the one time he grew out of that stereotype cliche. But for all the series, even when he's, even when he like killed Lord Reefer, which was pretty cool, and he was helping Londo out, he still fit that kind of cliche of the bumbling idiot stereotype. If you ever come here, it's like, oh Londo, I don't know, blah 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 blah, and that just it's terrible writing in my opinion. I'm sorry. Again, all right, crucify. I know. Call me all sorts of things in the comment. Go right ahead. What the fuck ever. Anyway, let me get into my number 4, my top 4, and I think this, I'm actually gonna ruffle a bit less feathers. This probably won't be as offensive to the to the B5 fans, but maybe so. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll start with my number 4, in keeping with the theme of the Centauri, because I really don't like the Centauri. Is Emperor Catania. I really didn't like this character. I liked this story arc, particularly, it makes sense, and I talked about this in my reviews, to have an emperor who's, mad, insane, and going off and killing people and talking to heads and stuff. It's just his execution. Again, and this is, most of the issues I have with Babylon 5 isn't the concept, but the execution. And that's definitely the case here, because, again, I think this actor was a very poor actor. He came off as a cliche soap opera type actor. And to be fair, doing crazy is a bit hard. Not everyone can do crazy well. Like Avery Brooks, he can do crazy amazingly well. They should have got someone like that to play this character. This actor, sorry, he didn't quite get there. And I never bought him as insane. I never bought him as a realistic character. He seemed fake. He seemed like he belonged in a soap opera. He seemed like he was obviously reading his lines. And so this character just didn't work for me. Sorry. Anyway, again, the whole Centauri thing, anyway, I talked about that. Let's get into my number 3, which is Talia Winters. I can't talk about bad acting. Mentioning by bad acting, I haven't seen her in anything else, so I don't know if she's good in anything else. I heard that she left the show so she could be on NYPD Blue or something. But I never liked this character. She was poorly acted, poorly written. They tried to ham-fist a relationship with her and Ivanova, and that so didn't work. They did such a piss-poor shit job at doing it. I didn't really buy it for a second. And her whole, every time she appeared, she's like, ooh, she seemed all whiny and not very well developed at all. And especially that first episode was a mind war where she was with that other telepath guy who was an absolutely horrendously bad actor. And to see them two just hamming up the stage and chewing the fuck out of the scenery was just... I couldn't bear it. And the way, is obvious when the actress left the show, they came up with a really piss-poor bullshit excuse to write her off. Oh, she was actually a sleeper agent this whole time. Bullshit! No! Bullshit! Horseshit. Anyway, enough about her. Let me get into my top 2. My top 2, I think, actually, in contrast to this previous list where people are going to want to fillet me alive, most people are probably going to agree with my top 2. So take solace in that. My top 2, you'll probably agree with me. Anyway, we'll get with my number 2, which is Byron from season 5, or how I like to call him, Skinny Fabio. Oh my god, talk about... Well, I don't know if it was poor acting as much. Maybe not as much as my two previous entries. More bad writing. I think bad writing was definitely a bigger factor. This character was all over the place. He'd be very obtuse. He did a lot of idiot. He acted like a fucking moron and a drama queen sometimes when the situation didn't call for it. And it's just, I think the main thing, in contrast to Londo, to be fair, he's only number 8 because he had a really good character arc. Byron did not. Not only was Byron not a good, interesting character, his character arc was all over the fucking place, and they never got it right. They didn't know what the fuck to do with him. And that final ending where he killed himself for no goddamn reason. I mean, unless they're trying to say that his whole goal was to martyr himself, but that's actually contradictory to the way he was behaving before, so I wouldn't buy that even if you tried to sell me that bill good. But he was just like, Bester showed up and started shooting at him, and Sheridan's like, stop Bester. He's like, no, I didn't. It's very obvious that Sheridan didn't want Bester there, and he's like, no, we can still honor the deal, I'll let you go. And he's like, no, it's gone too far. And I'm just like, the fuck are you even talking about? Anyway, fuck this guy. Okay. So now my number one least favorite character, worst character of Babylon 5, and I have heard, I don't think anyone liked this character, but some people made excuses for him. But anyway, it is Warren Kefir. Is it Warren Kefir? I think it's Warren Kefir. Zap Brannigan, as I like to call him. He's this fly boy who's only in season 2, and apparently the studio forced JMS to put him in the show, so JMS purposely did a shitty job with him and made him a shit character so they would let him write him off the show, which to me is a bit juvenile. But and as I said, with some people make excuses. That's the excuse they make. Some people are like, oh, it's okay that this character sucks because the studio forced it upon him, and so he was clever by making him suck, so he didn't have to have him in the show anymore. I don't think that's clever. I think that's juvenile. But the character himself, yeah, it was just like, there are good ways to introduce characters, like I'll get to in some of the other characters on my best list. There are good ways to introduce characters. You give them a proper introduction, you ease them into the show, give them a reason for being introduced into the show. This character just popped up out of nowhere like he was there the whole time. That is the worst TV cliche. It almost never works. Any TV show that tries to do this usually gets slams. Like Rick and Morty had a whole episode making fun of this cliche. And audiences, because it's very jarring, it's very ridiculous. They're trying to say he was there the whole time and he's just this flyboy. He doesn't really have anything interesting to do. They just give him a few scenes by himself where he, oh gee whiz, read gee willikers, blah blah. He just acts like a dumbass, and then, you know, of course they kill him off at the end of the season because they got this way. Now, getting back to the whole JMS thing, you ever heard the saying, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade? Well, and for this analogy, like, the producers gave JMS lemons. And instead of making lemonade out of those lemons, he squeezed the lemons and pissed into a cup and mixed them together. And he himself had to drink it. And, of course, the producers had to drink it. And everyone had to drink this piss-lemon combination. And he was just like, see? Isn't this disgusting, drinking this piss-lemon? Now, next time, maybe you won't give me lemons. And so, all right, fine, the producer's like, all right, we won't give you lemons anymore if you're going to make us drink piss. But the problem with that is that JMS himself had to drink the piss. So that is juvenile. That is spiteful. If the studio is forcing you to write in this flyboy character, make the best of it. And to be fair, I think he was being very juvenile, because I think you could have done good things with this. There's nothing wrong with the concept of a flyboy character, especially if you make him a tertiary character who's mainly in the background, like Kefir was, but just do it in a better way. Like, I do agree that they had these flying ships that were kind of rip-offs of the Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars little X-Wing fighters, and it reminded me a lot of the Battlestar Galactica reboot anyway, but the original came out before this, just saying. But anyway, they had those types of ships, the Star Furies, I think they called. They didn't really have any characters who were involved in them, so I understand the concept. And speaking of Battlestar Galactica, we've seen what the reboot of Battlestar did with Starbuck and Apollo. They made them really the flyboys, so you can do really great things with flyboy characters. And because it didn't fit into his master plan, he had to pitch a hissy fit and piss in a lemonade instead of making the best out of it, which he could have done. So no, I don't give him a pass at all. and the slightest for this and be like, oh, he's actually brilliant for making this character shit. No. He was stupid for making this character shit because it just made season 2 bad. Or at least, I'm not saying season 2 was bad. You've seen my review. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was worse. It would have been better without this character, or if this character was written better. The fact that he made this character so bad, it was a blemish on season 2, and he was just drinking piss lemonade out of spite. Anyway, I think I hammered that analogy enough. Anyway, okay. So, done with the worst. Those of you who haven't rage quit this video yet out of rage, how fucking dare you, or left a string of profanity for me in the comment section, or maybe you continue watching after you left the profanity. But anyway, let's move on to my top 10 favorite characters of Babylon 5. So these are characters that kind of made me change my mind, because I said that the characters were not good in Babylon 5. They were kind of flat, cliche, not written very well. I still say that's true for the 10 I just mentioned, but the next 10 I'm about to get into, not so much, and actually shows me that Babylon 5 can write good dynamic characters. So let's get into it. My top 10 favorite characters of Babylon 5, and let's start with my number 10, which is number 1. That's very confusing. The character's name is number 1, but she's my number 10. Get it? And, number 1 is the character who's a part of the resistance on Mars. She showed up in season 4, and she had a little fling with Franklin, and then she showed up at the end of season 5 and became she was like an ambassador of Mars, and she became like a part of the Babylon 5 crew after, when the show ended. So she was supposed to be a part of the crew after Sheridan and all them left. The next crew to take over the next generation. I like this character. It's kind of a cliche to have a really attractive woman be the head of a resistance movement, but I think the character and the way the actress and the way it was written totally sold me. I totally bought that she would be. She had that very stern demeanor, and she wore it very well. And I totally bought this, and I think she added a lot of dynamic. And it was really great when she popped up again in season 5. It was really great seeing her again. I think she adds a lot to the show. So my number 10 is number 1. What? Anyway, get the who's on first. All right. We'll get into my number 9, which is Delenn. Great character. I don't know, sometimes I was kind of iffy on putting her in my top 10 because sometimes she can be a bit too much of a religious stereotype, and I didn't like her season 2 storyline about she has hair, oh my god, I have hair now, but they got over that and she became a bit more interesting in season 3, and I did like the dynamic she brought in the house. She sort of knew more because she knew that Sinclair was meant to become Valen and all that, and she had the secret. She knew more than everyone's, and she always had a bit of wisdom to her. And in the later seasons, like when she got with Sheridan, which is a relationship I kind of lukewarm on, I don't hate, but I did like how she was always the reasonable one. Like when Sheridan would ever fly off the handle and want to do something without thinking, she was always there to level him out and be the voice of reason. I think she worked well in that role, and I think she worked well in you get a sense of her spiritual journey or her character journey. And the Malari Civil War thing in season 4 I think was very good with her. I think it really showed the type of optimist that she is. I like Delenn. I did see her first actress. I saw her first on Lost, playing Daniel Rousseau, so I know most people, of course, because Babylon 5 came out before Lost, would once they saw Lost, it was like, hey, it's the woman from Babylon 5. For me, I was like, hey, it's the woman from Lost, because I had already seen Lost first, which I loved her on Lost, so maybe that's why I liked her better here. Anyway, move on to my number 8, which is Ivanova. I do think I didn't like her that much in season 1, to be frank, or to be Bob. I don't know, but to be straight with you, I didn't like her that much in season 1. I did like her a bit better in season 2 and season 3. Season 3 and 4 is when she was awesome. It's funny, I don't know, season 2 and 3, they would often give her a little side plot. where she'd go off and do something with her own side plot, like a Sheridan would assign her to do some shit because he was too lazy to do it himself. And some of these were dumb, like the whole guy trying to have sex with her. Like, that was just really stupid. But overall, I think she was a very good character, and I loved her interactions with Marcus, and especially towards the end of the season. I talked about my favorite episodes, saying the scene with her after Marcus sacrificed. Like, that actress was amazing in that scene. That was like Oscar-winning performance. That was so well done, and that really brought home her whole sort of character journey. And I like how they ended her character, how she ran off to become, like, go to the far reaches, whatever, because she was so affected by Marcus's death. I really bought that, and it did make a lot of sense. And also, that she always had that sort of keeping people at a distance. And the thing is, she kind of did love Marcus, but she just had her whole demeanor and her whole everything she's experienced in life has led her to have that really stern, sort of rigid attitude, and to keep everyone at arm's length. But then again, she was always close to Sheridan, and was able to support him during the resistance. And when Sheridan first came on board, she already knew him, so that made his introduction easier. So yeah, I like Ivanova. Anyway, we're getting into my number 7, which is Naroon. This is kind of a side supporting character. This is the Malari dude who was like of the warrior caste, and he was always like the evil asshole guy who would come in and be like, try to be a foil and just be a dick. And to be frank, I didn't like him that much in his first couple of appearances, but I think in retrospect what they did with him in the later episodes sort of justified his earlier appearances. So I did in retrospect like those earlier appearances as well, because he has a great character arc. Because he goes from like being this hard up fuck humans, I hate humans, and Delen's an idiot for wanting to work with them. What the fuck are these stupid idiot religious caste people doing? He goes from that to sacrificing himself to save Delen's life. That was, and I bought it. I think it wasn't like it felt rigid or out of nowhere. It was totally believable because he earned this with his character journey, with like, I talked about this again recently with Marcus sort of willing to fight him to the death, even though Marcus knew that he would die. There was no way he could win, but he's willing to do that anyway because he was that devoted to Delen, and to see that he was convinced, that convinced him that Delen was worthy. And then he slowly more, like when Delen was trying to negotiate with him, like he was ordered to betray her, so he did because he's a loyal warrior, but he could still see the value in her, and that made him a very noble character. Even though he was often an asshole and a dickhead, he was like dynamic. He wasn't just an asshole for being an asshole's sake, which is what I thought of him in the first couple episodes, to be honest, which is why I think the later episodes make those earlier appearances better in retrospect, because it shows that he's not just the asshole dick stereotype, that he actually is more dynamic than that. Anyway, we'll get into my number 6, which is Garibaldi. Now, this is another character, again, I didn't really like much in Season 1, because I didn't really care much for any of the Season 1 characters, or Season 1 at all. But he got better in later seasons, particularly Season 4 and Season 5. I thought he was very good. He always had these very quippy, sort of interesting interactions with the other characters, particularly Londo and Jakar, and actually was very friendly with both of them, despite being like the security chief, the cop, basically. He had this kind of like they knew if things came to it, he would arrest them or work against them, but they still respected each other, and there was this like huge respect between them. And I can't say enough good things about his story arc in Season 4, which is ironic because I absolutely hated it at first until they revealed the big reveal that he was mind wiped by Bester, and then that made everything make sense. And as I talked about this again recently, that whole scene when he found out that Bester revealed what he'd done to him, and he couldn't do anything about it. He was just impotent, and he was just screamed. That was an amazing scene. That was amazingly acted. And then even in season 5, I liked the season 5 storyline where he fell back into alcoholism because of what Bester did to him. That made total sense, and it was a really interesting journey in contrast to Franklin's STEM abuse thing, which I thought was total bullshit. And by the way, Franklin was the character I almost put on my worst list just because of that STEM abuse bullshit. But other than that, I was fine with him, so I didn't put him on the worst list. But in contrast to that, I thought Garibaldi's relapse was a lot more believable, made a lot more sense, and he's just a much more interesting character, and a bit of a badass too. He has some really good badass moments, especially towards the end of the show where he gets this person who tried to assassinate him and shoves him to Lita and makes her rip the ants out of his mind that it was the whole entire board of that corporation his wife owns, and he just goes to them and is fires them all and blackmails them. It was amazing. I love Garibaldi. He's kind of and I said this before, he's kind of like O'Brien is to Deep Space Nine. He's kind of like the everyman. And he does suffer a lot too, just like O'Brien does. So I do think he works a lot. Anyway, we'll move on to my number 5, which is Bester. I love Walter Koenig. I said this, and that's why I didn't put Mind War in my worst episodes, because Walter Koenig's so great in that episode. He's so great in every episode. He plays this character so well. He comes off like such the asshole prick type, and again, not a stereotype, not a cliche asshole, but a believable one, because you believe that it's not just as he's an asshole, it's that he's devious. He's very smart about it. And you buy his motivations, that he does want what's best for the telepaths. And he wants power. He's power hungry, and he wants power not just for himself, but all of Psy-Corps. And he believes in the core. He believes in his cause. And he's very devious. He knows how to manipulate people. And not every episode he was in was gold, I'll be fair. There are some episodes he showed up in I thought were kind of boring. And it's oh, we're seeing him again. Particularly season 5. I thought he was very misused in season 5. But used very well in season 4. That's for damn sure. Anyway, God, Bester is so good. He's such a great villain. He's one, and I think that's really hampered. Deep Space Nine had Dukat, not the Malari Dukat, but the Deep Space Nine Dukat, and Babylon 5 had Bester. Bester was just such a great villain, such a dynamic villain, added so much to the show. Anyway, speaking of telepaths, let's move over to my number 4. And if you were mad at me for hating Talia, maybe I can ease your mind with my number 4 best character is Lita. And to be fair, in contrast to Lanier, which was only my worst list because of season 5, I think Lita is mainly on my best list because of season 5. Season 5, I liked her before, especially in season 4. I think from the gathering, whatever, in season 3, her appearances seemed kind of unnecessary. But in season 4, she was getting a bit more interesting. They were fleshing her character out and how she was a rogue telepath, and how she was forced to work with Psy-Corps because Sheridan would kind of screw her over, which I actually think is kind of bad writing, but on Sheridan's part, not on her part. But anyway, Season 5, her Season 5 story arc, that stupid skinny Fabio notwithstanding, because that part, she wasn't bad in that part of the arc, it's just that arc was bad. She was fine in it, but it led to an interesting character arc for the second half of the season, which again led to one of my favorite scenes in the entire show, where she's it's not just that one scene where she's tapping her fingers and everyone else around her taps her. You know the scene I'm talking about, and they all she threatens to Lockley tries to arrest her. It's you can't. She's just gonna mind control everyone and attack. That was such a creepy scene, such an amazing scene. I love that scene so much. But it's not just that scene, because the whole build up to it was so good. How they showed her in earlier episodes going to Shakar and making a deal and just hampering back again to the gathering, where Shakar tried to bribe her into giving up some of her telepathic DNA because Narn still had telepaths, and she used that to her advantage to help fund her cause, and she got permanent funding for her cause. And but again, she was kind of sloppy with the money, which led to Lockley trying to arrest her, and eventually did arrest her because Sheridan showed up. And she was smart about that too, and she got Garibaldi and went in league with him because she knew that he could funnel money properly. So Garibaldi had something she wanted, mainly because Garibaldi wanted to get back at Bester. He wanted to kill Bester, but Bester put like this block preventing him to do it. And it's kind of a shame to me that the storyline was never resolved. At least not in a TV show. I'm sure someone will tell me there's some bonus material, some bullshit where it was resolved, which I don't care about. I wish it was resolved in the show. But it was still fascinating, and mainly for season 5 of Story Arc, the way she just became this badass, like, all-powerful telepath. I actually loved that. I thought that was done very well. And, as I mentioned in my reviews, I was on her side. I was actually mad at Sheridan for showing up and putting a gun to her head. I wanted her to mindfuck Lockley and the others and fund the terrorists to destroy Psychor, because fuck Psychor. But anyway, let me get into my number 3. Number 3 best character, which is Marcus Cole. Now, I talked before when I was talking about Zach Brannigan. I mentioned that was a shit way to introduce a character, and there was a good example of introducing a character, a la Marcus Cole, because he was introduced the very next year in season 3. Instead of just having him pop up out of nowhere and be like, I was here the whole time, they say no. They introduce him as into arriving at Babylon 5 for the first time, him being a ranger, and he gets slowly introduced. That is how you introduce a character, and this character was very well developed, very dynamic, very interesting too. They gave him like a Shakespeare quality to him, which at times I thought they were making him a bit too British. Stereotypical British, I should say, because you'll be like, oh, what's wrong with being British? Nothing's wrong with being British. It's wrong with when you're stereotypical. But, other than that, I did like this character a lot. I did think he worked a lot for the plot, and as I said, like, this character, when he died, was one of the best, if not the best, character death in any show ever. Yeah, it really affected me. It was really, because it was earned. They totally earned how he was falling in love with Ivanova. I totally bought it, and how she kept rejecting him, and they kept playing at the relationship and making it safe, and also, again, showing his strength of character of how he almost just killed himself for Delenn, because Naroon was trying to kill Delenn, so he just was going to just sacrifice himself for her, and it shows his noble of spirit. And also, he had a backstory, which was very good, fleshed out about his brother dying, and why his intentions, why he had that kind of suicidal tendency, which, of course, made it make total sense when he sacrificed himself to save Ivanova. And he just he added so much to the action. He was the foil that they needed, that the producers wanted when they tried to force that Brannigan onto the things. He was the good response to that. He was the one that made the show work. Amazing character. Love Marcus Cole. Okay, so next we'll get into my number 2, my second favorite character of Babylon 5, and to be frank, again, hi, my name is Frank. To be honest, he was very much almost my number 1 character, very close to being my number 1 character, but I decided to make him number 2 instead, and that is Mr. Morden. Mr. Morden. Fucking love this character from the very beginning. I think he had the best introduction. The fact that he comes off as cheesy 90s, and like the cheesy 90s haircut, and like, what do you want? That actually works for the character, because it makes him seem a lot more fucking creepy. And when they reveal like this 2 like mysterious shadow creatures that are walking beside them the whole time, you just can't see them. When that's revealed, that fucking creepy as hell. This character was so good being creepy. Now, the reason why I decided to put him at number 2, not number 1, is because of the beginning of season 4, when after Zahadun blew up, but they wanted to keep his character around anyway, so they just gave him like this burned face. That was cheesy. I couldn't really take him seriously when he's all red-faced on Centauri. Oh, Menander, blah, blah, blah. But they gave him his real face back for the final episode of the Shadow War, where Londo kills him, and that was an amazing scene, because he had the upper hand over Londo this whole time, and he's always arrogant, always boasting because he knew he had the shadows protecting him. But Londo just kills the shadows standing next to him, and then blows up the entire fucking island that the shadows are on, and then decapitates them. That was fucking amazing. Again, this is another great character. I talked about Bester being an amazing villain. Bester probably would be the main villain because he appeared more than Mr. Morden did. But when Mr. Morden appeared, he was always good. And in one of my favorite episodes of the one where it was revealed that he was actually on the ship that Sheridan's wife was on when he disappeared, so he assumed she was dead. Now, such a great way to tie him into the main storyline, and seeing his confrontation with Sheridan where he's still being arrogant. I just love this character. Yeah, and the other reason he's number 2, not number 5, is because his appearance in season 5 was done with the Day of the Dead, and I didn't like that episode. So those 2 blemishes is what kind of shoved it back. Otherwise, I would have put him at number 1 because I fucking love this character. Anyway, let me finally get into my number 1 favorite character. And those who are mad at me putting Londo in my worst list, maybe I can sort of make it up to you by saying my number 1 favorite character of Babylon 5 is Jakar. Jakar. He was definitely my favorite character. I said in my review of season 1, I said he was the only character I liked. Later, I would like more characters, but he still remained one of the best throughout the entire season. He actually got more interesting as the show went on, because when the show started in season 1, he was kind of portrayed as the villain, as the typical asshole, the devious one that can't be trusted. But then his character grew, and then you sympathize for him when his entire home world was being wiped out and taken over and enslaved, and he was in exile, and you really sympathize with him, and you can understand and you can get his anger and why he was unwilling to forgive Londo even after Londo helped him stop the occupation of Narn, because the damage had still been done and he was still being a complete dick to Londo, which is, again, totally understandable. But they had the slow progression of him learning to forgive Londo, which was very touching, very well done. I mean, this character was always interesting, and how they ended the show with him seeing that Lita was sort of going crazy and going off the rails, so he decided to just go off with her into an adventure into the unknown. That was a great way to end his character story. Although we do know chronologically it ends with him dying with Londo, but not the whole prophecy of them dying with the hands at the throat, which they mentioned to show that they died as bitter enemies, but they actually died as friends because Londo was taken over by that little keeper thingy, and that's why they were killing him, because Londo wanted Jakar to kill him because of the keeper thing, and of course the keeper thingy wasn't very happy about it, so strangled him back, so they both died. So it's a tragic ending, but good ending. Very good character story for a very good character. Actor who played him was amazing, always the best. Did such a great job at portraying this character. Even when he was acting all silly, when he became the writer and I had to write for the Alliance or whatever, when he wrote the inauguration or wrote their principles or whatever the fuck. And of course he wrote the Book of Jakar, which I don't know about that storyline, but still a great character. Love Jakar. Anyway, that is it for my top 10 favorite and least favorite characters of Babylon 5, and that is it for my Babylon 5 coverage. Again, as I said before I started my Babylon 5 coverage, that this had been the most requested show I've ever gotten on my channel, so I hope you guys are happy I finally covered Babylon 5. It was great. It was actually great getting back into the show. I did appreciate it a lot more, reliving this great show. So I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Anyway, I'm going to now move on from Babylon 5 to Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Next month, in 1 month's time, I will do the same format where I'll review one season a month, and review every single episode of that season in a video that's roughly about 45 minutes to an hour long. Long videos, just like this one, I know. So, I hope you join me for that. So I can't wait to finally get back into Star Trek. It was fun getting into Babylon 5, but I think from now on I'm going to reserve this format for Star Trek, because I think it kind of works better with Star Trek. But it was fun talking about Babylon 5, and I hope you join me next month to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Anyway, you can check out my channel as I cover many other shows like Better Call Saul, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, and The Expanse. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks so much for watching.